American Airlines. I'm the co-chair of the Tribute to Valor Foundation, and it's a privilege to be here with you this morning. We have a very, very exciting program for you all. You are in for a rare privilege, the opportunity to hear from two of our nation's Medal of Honor recipients of the highest award for valor in combat that our nation can bestow. At this time, please rise for the presentation of colors by the Central High School JROTC Color Guard and the national anthem performed by Silent School.
Say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Now, welcome to the stage the principal of Central High School, Dr. Godfrey.
Good morning. I would like again to welcome everyone to our Tribute to Valor Assembly today. It is my pleasure and quite an honor to introduce our distinguished guest. Students, this is a rare opportunity for you to hear stories from such esteemed individuals about courage, sacrifice, and perseverance. I encourage each of you to listen and reflect on what they have to say to you today. So without further ado, I would like to first introduce to you Jim Palmersheim. Jim is a U.S. Army veteran, a pilot and captain with American Airlines, and co-chairman of the Tribute to Valor Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Godfrey. And thank you, all of you, for having us here today. Before we get started, how about another round of applause for this incredible honor guard from the Junior ROTC program. And silence, we're going to take you on the road because we need talent like yours to present the national anthem the way it's supposed to be performed. Great job. Thank you so much. So we're here today in St. Joe, Missouri. I reside down in the Dallas, Texas area. Gary Luttrell is from Tampa, Florida, and Leroy Petrie came in from Seattle. So we came literally from all over the country to be here with you today. The Tribute to Valor Foundation has one basic focus: help students, young people, and adults answer the question, who am I? That's something you're going to hear a lot about today. Who am I? Whether you're young, whether you're not so young, or whether you're reflecting in years that have gone by, you're never too old to ask yourself that question. You're never too old to look yourself in the mirror and ask that question. And that's what you're going to hear about today. But life is about perspective, and it's about experience. And our mission is to pay it forward with the experiences of a very special group of men, recipients of the Medal of Honor. By a show of hands, how many of you know what the Medal of Honor is and what it represents? That's fantastic. Typically in a group this size, if we ask that question, we wouldn't get that many hands. But for those who don't know, or for those of you that did raise your hand, we will hopefully give you some new perspective today. The Medal of Honor was created in 1861. And in about the last 100 and almost 60 years, roughly 3,500 medals have been awarded. Over half of those medals were awarded posthumously, meaning one gave their life, and then their actions were recognized, and for that they received the medal. Many people refer to Medal of Honor recipients as Medal of Honor winners, but I don't think that they win anything, especially given the price that's been paid by over half of the recipients who have given their life and then received the medal. We like to say that the Medal of Honor has been earned. Today, there are only 71 living recipients of the medal. So to have two recipients here at Central High School is more rare and a greater privilege than ever meeting anyone who won a Super Bowl or anyone whose name is in any Hall of Fame. You truly are in the presence of heroes, and it truly is an incredibly rare experience that you will have today. So let's get started. It is my privilege to introduce to you Leroy Petrie, who received his Medal of Honor for actions in Afghanistan. An Army Ranger, Leroy Petrie continues to serve as a recipient to inspire, influence, and impact others to reflect upon their lives and answer the question, who am I? How about a big, warm Central High School round of applause for Medal of Honor recipient Leroy Petrie.
Thank you, Jim, for that introduction and for all you continue to do. First of all, thank you to you all for having us here at your high school, being here with you today, and the ones that couldn't be here that are watching on video. It's an honor for me to be here with you all. I was in your shoes. I got 4 kids that went through the school systems, and thank you to the teachers and to your staff for what you do on a daily basis. Sometimes we don't realize that we're never alone in this world. From the day we're born, there's somebody out there to take care of us. There's somebody there to help us. There's somebody that we could go to if we need help. And it's from your parents raising you, providing you with food, shelter, all that stuff, your teachers providing your education. Even when you get as old as my Ranger buddy, Gary, you still have people to reach out to that still he needs help sometimes as well. And that's the thing that I love is I get to tell you when we talk about who are you, who am I get to tell you a little bit about me. And I grew up in a small town in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and didn't hang out with a great crowd. I was ditching school, getting in fights. My mom was being called to the principal's office. I was getting suspended. And it took me till I got home one day to check my report card. It was coming in the mail, and I wanted to see how bad it was before my parents got home. And I opened the envelope, and I look at it. I see my name at the top, Leroy Arthur Petrie, my student ID number, and then I look down at the grades, F, 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 D, F. And I looked up and down the street. Nobody was around. It was only myself. And I had my dreams as a kid. I wanted to join the military. I wanted to be in the Army. And I realized that I was taking the wrong path, that I was surrounding myself with people that were bringing me down, that were trying to convince me that it was, hey, come on, it's cool, let's ditch, and were negative influences in my life. And so at that moment, I realized that if anyone held that piece of paper, they would see my name at the top, and they wouldn't know who Leroy really was. They would just think, well, he's a failure, because they saw the grades. And so I said, I have to project a better image of myself, or else the Army's not even going to let me in. And so that's exactly what I did. I started hanging around with people that positively supported me, that encouraged me, that I could reach out to for help. And that's what really got me on the right track. In fact, my senior year, I made straight A's. The city gave me a small award called the Bootstrap Award. I had no idea what it was. I was just proud to take something home to my parents and that they could be proud of me for. And it turns out the award was based off the military's boots. They used to have straps on them, and that's kind of what they used to pull them up. And they said, that's what you did. You pulled yourself up. But I look at it, just as I look at this medal that we talk about, you don't need to be recognized to be a hero to somebody. It could be as simple as listening to somebody's problems when they're having a hard time. And that's exactly how I look at a lot of these people that I am fortunate to meet today, celebrities, pro athletes, other Medal of Honor recipients, and they've done a great thing. But I look at, now that they have that platform, what are they doing? What is their character like? Are you going to gloat and say, look at me, look what I did forever? Or are you going to say, I did this, but let me go do something else for somebody else? And so that's what I look at is, I could do my whole life worry about Leroy. I could have retired from the military and stay at home and do nothing. But I want to give more. I want to give more to my community, to the country I grew up in, to make it a better place for my kids. And as we all travel, most of you will leave the place you grew up in. And we want to go to good places. We don't want to visit places that aren't good. So we have to make our towns better for people to come visit us as well. One of the things that I look at when I look at character is that we have our pillars of courage, sacrifice, commitment, integrity, patriotism, and citizenship. How do you measure success? Well, I'll tell you, for me, it's simple. I heard that on the radio. How do you measure success? Being a parent, the way I measure success is not by the amount of possessions or wealth, but knowing that my children are going to grow up and be contributors to society and not be a drain on it. That's how I measure my success, is that I raise my kids to do the right thing, to make the right choices. And that is helping others around them, encouraging others around them, having faith in themselves that they're going to do the best they can every day. I signed up for the Army during the Be All You Can Be days, and I love that motto. But we don't mean it for the Army. We mean it for the people to our right and to our left. It was my duty to be at 100% for them. In 2008, on my, it was my 7th deployment overseas. We were going after a high-value target, and as we went into this rural area, into a compound, we started getting engaged. They started clearing one of the buildings in the back corner. I stayed in the doorway and I said, I need another guy to clear this courtyard. There's about 20-foot walls going around, about the size of this auditorium. And as we started to move, another younger private and I, two guys popped up to our left, 15 feet away, and they had AK-47s spraying from the hip, and one of the rounds penetrated my left thigh. It was like seeing a deer when it gets shot, where he kind of bucks a little bit and keeps running. That's exactly what happened. I knew I was hit, but I figured I could still run if it wasn't that bad. We needed to get my buddies out of there, and if they could dig out the bullet later if it was still in there. And so we got behind that small building adjacent to it, and they pinned us down with gunfire. I threw a grenade over the building, it went off, bought us a lull in fire, and then another guy came running over, another ranger, and as we're pinned down against the back of this building that's no bigger than 6.5 feet wide, we hear a blast, and it kind of shocks those two, and they look at me and they said, "What was that?" And I said, "They're throwing grenades. Keep your heads down. Keep watching those corners." And I stayed on the radio, letting them know that we had a couple guys injured. The guy behind me had been shot just below his armpit. We didn't know how bad it was. Later, we found out it was 1/4 of an inch from going over his plate, and it would have basically hit all his vital organs. And so we're still hearing gunfire, and I'm doing my checks on my corner, and as I turn down to check on my guys, I see a grenade sitting on the ground. And it wasn't there before. It wasn't one of ours. And so I saw it was a threat. I reached over, I grabbed it, and as I went to throw it away, as I opened my hand, it exploded. Completely took the hand off at the wrist. I sat up, I looked at it. It was bleeding pretty good, but what went through my head is, why isn't this thing shooting in the air 3 feet like in Hollywood? And but I snapped back to reality. I knew I had been trained to take care of medical situations, and so I put on a tourniquet, looked immediately at my guys, checked on them, and we ended up getting out of there, and we went to where our medics were, and first thing the medic comes up to me and says, "Hey, we need to start treating you." I said, "I'm fine. I already got a tourniquet on this. Start helping those guys." My concern was all about them, not about myself. And he said, "Well, we got other people helping them. We need to look at your legs." And that's when I looked down, and my legs were covered in blood. I had been shot through both my thighs, I found out, and it missed all the artery and all the bones. It was a miracle that I didn't hit an artery and bleed out in a minute and a half. But that's the way I look at today. When I wake up in the morning and I open my eyes and I breathe air into my lungs, I know I'm blessed with another day of opportunity, an opportunity to impact other people's lives, to do the best I can, to be a good citizen of this country, to face the challenges I have, and know that there's others that have harder hardships than myself. Tying buttons with one hand, getting dressed with one hand, it's difficult. I still run into issues today, but when I lost my hand, I hit a wall. I wanted to be a ranger the rest of my life. And I said, well, what am I going to do now? How am I going to support my wife and 4 kids? The Army's going to kick me out. What am I going to do for a job with one hand? And I realized, instead of just focusing on that wall in front of me that was blocking me, that I needed to find a way around it. And I did that by reaching out to friends, family, and really looking inside of me what I wanted to do with my life. Was I just going to dwell and say, wow, I'm a victim because I lost my hand? Or am I going to do something bigger with it? And so I loved what I was doing. I actually re-enlisted before the Medal of Honor was even awarded. I loved what I was doing. And I said, if it goes through, great. I'm going to use it as a tool to help others. If it doesn't, then at least I'm still doing the job I love. And that's what it is to me. It's a representation of all those who have served, all those who are currently serving, and especially those who paid the ultimate sacrifice. And I know many of you, by show of hands, how many of you have moms, dads, relatives, or know somebody that served in the military? It's a good number, and thank you, and please thank them. And to any Vietnam veterans that we have here, a special thank you to you. They had to go fight an unpopular war and come back to an ungrateful country that didn't give them the support like my generation's getting today. And we don't do it for any fanfare or accolades, but I'll tell you what, I was at a time where there wasn't a lot of thanks either, and each one that I got in the airport by a passerby or somebody, that meant that much more to me. And it was, it's something special. When you get appreciated, when you do something for somebody else, you can't put a value on that. And so I ask you all to look at yourselves, and those of you that are great athletes, we all have something that we're good at and something that we're struggle with. And those of you that are good at great academically, yeah, you get great grades, but when's the last time you looked at somebody else in your school and said, hey, let me help you. Let me show you what I'm good at. And that's what I learned from my time in the military is we all had different occupations. And I strove to learn from those others as much as I tried to give them education on my own. And so we look at you all, you're the future of our country. And being a STEM school, I've been blessed with robotics that have come out. I thought when I lost my hand I was going to have a hook. I actually brought my spare so I could pass around. Would you mind passing that down to them? And I couldn't be more happy. That's the closest thing to the real thing. But I know that there's going to be generations that are going to figure out something even better. The first hand that was developed, old movie Terminator, it was a large room computer. And now you look at the computers, the first generation to where we are at with our cell phones. Well, the other thing is looking at sacrifice. Sacrifice. Do we really understand what sacrifice is? When we talk about sacrifice, does that mean, hey, I gave up, I went and held the door for somebody. I sacrificed my time to hold the door for the whole class. That's courtesy. But World War II, they talk about being the greatest generation. It wasn't only because of the troops, it was because of the country. Young kids were giving up their toys to be melted down to support their fathers, uncles, strangers overseas. And how many of you all have one of these today? And you talk about sacrifice. If it was needed, and they came to you today and said, will you give up your cell phone to help the troops overseas, or to help with this disease that just struck a different part of the country, or to help with the floods out in wherever? That's a kind of sacrifice. It doesn't have to be big, but it has to be something that you hold dear, and it's hard for you to do, but you know you do it for the greater good. But you've given me plenty of time, and I know you all want to hear from everyone else that's here, but I wish you all the best in life. I hope you never have to face some of the hardships or tough times like I've had in my life, but I know that if you face it with courage and you live a good life and make good decisions, surround yourself with good people, that you can overcome adversity no matter how big. So I wish you all the best, and thank you again for having me.
Thank you, Leroy. You know, Leroy said it best. It's all about paying it forward and making a difference. You don't have to be in the military to do that. You just have to have it in your heart that when you answer that question, who am I? Part of that answer is found in your ability to make a difference for others. And it can be any age. This next video we're going to show you is an incredible example of just that. It's the story of an 8-year-old boy. He was 8 years old in 2014. But on a typical Sunday afternoon in February, he went to Cracker Barrel with his family. And what happened there has paid it forward and made an incredible difference for so many others. Please focus on the video screen for the story of Miles Eckert.
Our final story begins with a chance encounter between an officer and a gentle young soul. Steve Hartman met them on the road.
here at the Ohio Air National Guard Base near Toledo.
This is the 180th Fighter Wing.
Lieutenant Colonel Frank Daly still can't believe the honor recently bestowed upon him.
It's incredible being recognized in such a manner.
It happened at a Cracker Barrel, of all places. As the security camera shows, Lieutenant Colonel Daly entered the restaurant on February 7th for an early lunch. At about the same time, 8-year-old Miles Eckert came in with his family. Miles, in the green hoodie, was very excited. He just found a $20 bill in the parking lot.
Just sitting there?
Yeah.
Did you start thinking of what you could spend it on?
I kind of wanted to get a video game, but then I decided not to.
He changed his mind when he saw that guy in uniform.
Because he was a soldier, and soldiers remind me of my dad.
And so, with his dad in mind, Miles wrapped the 20 in a note that read, "Dear soldier, my dad was a soldier. He's in heaven now. I found this $20 in the parking lot when we got here. We like to pay it forward in my family. It's your lucky day. Thank you for your service. Signed, Miles Eckert, a Gold Star kid." Army Sergeant Andy Eckert was killed in Iraq just 5 weeks after Miles was born. All the kid has ever had are pictures and dog tags,
This is his wedding ring.
other people's memories, and his own imagination.
I imagine him as a really nice person and somebody that would be really fun.
The dad he imagines must also love a good story.
There.
Because after lunch that day, Miles asked his mom, Tiffany, to make one more stop.
Excellent. He wanted to go see his dad. And he wanted to go by himself that day.
She took this picture from the car. Follow the footsteps and you'll see Miles standing there behind the flag, presumably telling his dad all about it. And whether heaven heard him or not, his good deed continues to impress here on earth.
You've read it more than once?
I look at it every day.
Kid gave you a bigger gift than $20.
A lifetime direction, for sure.
Lieutenant Colonel Daly says he's already given away the 20 and plans to do much more. He also hopes that little green post-it will inspire other people across the country to give as sincerely and dutifully as this father and son. Steve Hartman, on the road in Toledo, Ohio.
And that's the CBS Evening News for tonight. For all of us at CBS News all around the world, I'm Scott Pelley in Los Angeles. I'll see you Sunday on 60 Minutes. Good night.
So, we can all make a difference. The story after that goes as follows. Because of what CBS did to highlight what an 8-year-old boy did as part of the answer to his question, who am I? A simple gesture to give $20 to someone whom he thought needed it more than he did. Because of that story, over $1 million was raised for an organization called Snowball Express. I had the privilege to serve on Snowball Express Board of Directors. It's now part of the Gary Sinise Foundation. But because of Miles Eckert, over $1 million was raised for fellow Gold Star families, families who have lost an immediate family member serving the nation. The takeaway from this is this, just like Leroy and what Gary will tell you. We can all make a difference. Sometimes it's those smallest acts of kindness that have the largest impact, and we're all capable of it. We hope you'll take away after the presentation today, amongst other things, the ability to ask yourself, who am I, and what kind of difference can I make? Maybe it's just simply helping a neighbor, or if you happen to find $20 in the parking lot, give it to somebody who really needs it. A gentleman who's paid it forward, who's really part of the reason we're here today, has been a near and dear friend for nearly 15 years. In 2009, I had an opportunity to travel with him over to Iraq and see firsthand his commitment, his dedication, and his patriotism. He's a well-known recording artist, but I know him as a great friend and, as I said, a great patriot. Here to perform for you, please welcome to the stage, Phil Vandal.
Million miles from anywhere I ever thought be in the middle of the Middle East with blisters on my feet, walking around in the scorching sand beneath the desert sun, carrying a hope for peace and my Bible and a gun. Well, I've got pictures in my pocket of the ones that I hold true. It's the closest I can get to them till my deployment here is through. But they're always on my mind, and I'm counting down the days, knowing that they're missing me from half the world away. When you see that flag flying, hope you think of me. And though I'd give my own life just to keep yours free, it's a hell of a heavy burden, but I carry it for you, for the red, white, and blue. 'Cause that's what soldiers do. Sometimes I'm going through the motions. Sometimes I'm sharper than a tack. Sometimes the weight inside my mind outweighs the one upon my back. But there's things I have to do that I just can't explain. I just keep on pushing on, try not to complain. When you see that flag flying, hope you think of me. Though I'd give my own life just to keep yours free. It's a hell of a heavy burden, but I carry it for you, for the red, white, and blue. 'Cause that's what soldiers do. I'm not trying to be a hero, just doing my job, like so many other soldiers way out here on this farm. Make this promise to the families of the ones who gave their lives. With their sacrifice will live in me till the day I die. And when you see that flag a-flying, hope you'll think of me. Know I'd give my own life just to keep yours free. It's a hell of a heavy burden, but I carry it for you, and for the red, white, and blue. 'Cause that's what soldiers do. That's what soldiers do. Ain't that what soldiers do? Ain't that what soldiers do?
Thank you. Thank you, Phil. And I got to tell you, when you think about patriotism, a patriot has been defined as someone who loves his or her country. And it's often been said it's not about what you say, think, or feel, it's about what you do. And Phil, I can't think of someone who defines the word patriot like you do. So thank you so much. How about another round of applause for Phil Vandal? April 1970, in a place called Vietnam, Gary Luttrell was an advisor to a group of South Vietnamese Rangers. They were given a mission to take a hilltop. What they didn't know is that the enemy forces would outnumber them by a vast, vast majority. No one who would look at this particular engagement on paper would think that anyone would survive. But Gary Luttrell and many of the men in his unit did, because of the actions of Gary Luttrell during the 4 days of that very fierce firefight. Because of those actions, he was awarded our nation's highest award for valor in combat, the Medal of Honor. He is the chairman of the Tribute to Valor Foundation and an incredible inspiration to all of us. Please welcome to the stage Medal of Honor recipient, Gary Luttrell.
Thank you. Before I get started, I want to give a big thank you to Dr. Guthrie and Mrs. Joy for making this all possible. Thank you two so very, very much. When you look in the mirror in the morning, what do you see? I'm not talking about those pretty brown eyes and light brown hair. What do you see? Ask yourself, who am I? How do I want to be perceived by the person to the right and to the left of me? Do I want to be perceived as someone that has character? Or do I want to be perceived as someone as an empty shell of a body just passing through this world? And that's what we're going to talk about today. Who am I? Through your eyes when you look in the mirror. And I have over on the corner some of these little stickers. They're sticky backs. Peel it off. And I'm going to ask, I think that we're going to pass these out, that you take these and put them in a place of prominence. Maybe on your bathroom window, which is where this one's going. I want to look at it every morning. And I want to ask myself, who am I? What can I do to be a better person and have better character? But before we do that, I'm going to give you a little life story of me. I come from probably one of the most dysfunctional families that you can ever imagine. Life for me right now is as beautiful as it gets. I have a beautiful wife of 56 years. I have 2 sons that married 2 great women, and I have 4 grandkids. Life could not be better for Gary Luttrell. I want for nothing. My want is to do exactly what I'm doing today, to be right here with you. But life didn't start off that good. The first thing that I can remember in my life when I was 4 years old, my dad and my uncle got drunk, got in a knife fight. My uncle stabbed my dad in the back. He bled all over the house, down the front yard. I looked down into a ditch, and I said, well, I guess my dad's dead. It wouldn't have bothered me any if he had been, because he left my mother and us 4 kids to fend for ourselves. The next thing I remember, I was about 5 years old, and I'm looking down in the casket of my mother and little brother. Thanks to my dad not being there, they got run over by a car getting off a bus, killed my mother and little brother, and seriously injured my sister. I lived from family member to family member. I can never remember anyone ever hugging me or saying, I love you. And that affected me throughout my life because I didn't know how to share love. I had never had love. I didn't know how. My wife is the first person, we've been together 56 years, that ever hugged me and said, I love you. I didn't know how to give that back. I was 14 years old and I was living with an uncle. I'd gone to bed and I heard my uncle and my brother talking about, well, who's going to take him next? You know, we don't want him. And I'm hearing this. And I'm laying in bed. And for the first time I can remember saying a prayer was that night. I said, Lord, help me. Show me the light. Show me something. Help me define my life and not let my life define me. Help me because I want to be somebody. I'm a nobody. I had no character. I didn't know who I was. The next morning, I took charge of my life. I did not let life define me. I defined my life. I got out on the road, stuck my thumb out, age of 14 years old. 5 days later, I left Kentucky. 5 days later, I was in Los Angeles, California. Took my birth certificate with me, doctored it up, went down and joined the Army. I got halfway through basic training. Been out on the rifle range, fired good, proud of myself. I'm somebody now. Halfway through basic training, I got called into the first sergeant. He said, "Luttrell, how old are you?" I knew I was busted. I said, "I'm 15, but I'm a damn good soldier. I can stay, can't I?" "No, you got to come back when you're 17. He gave me a $10 bill and a bus ticket from Fort Ord, California, back to Los Angeles. I got off the bus in Los Angeles, homeless. What do I do now? But I am going to take control of my life. I am going to be somebody. I will not quit. I seen a help wanted sign. I walked into Mr. and Mrs. Toy. I told them my entire story, and I said, I need a job. And I stayed there until I was 17 years old. I joined the Army with a burning desire to be a paratrooper, because at the age of 9, I went down to Fort Campbell and watched those boys jump out of those airplanes, and I knew that's what I had to be. After I was airborne, I said, now what can I be? I found out then that I could be somebody if I tried, and I didn't quit. Never quit. Regardless of the hand you're dealt, you play it and you commit yourself to being the best. After I went to airborne school, I said, now I got to be a ranger. Because there was a young sergeant, Sergeant Sawyer, and I idolized him. I've got to be a Sergeant Sawyer because he's somebody. He's the one that gives all the classes. He's the one that all the privates look at. Not the lieutenants and the captains and the platoon sergeants. No, that one little Sergeant E5 with that ranger tab. So I went to ranger school, and my life continued to get better. Slow start. Dysfunctional family. Now, I had a wife and 2 kids before I got my high school GED. My son and I got our bachelor's in the same month. But it was a challenge. But I had to do it. Life now is as beautiful as life can be. That's why we started the Tribute to Valor Foundation. And this little sticky that I have says, who am I? And this is what we want to think about today. We want you to look into the mirror and ask yourself, who am I? And let's go over some of these. First, courage. Courage. When you look in the mirror, say, am I a person with courage? And let's evaluate that. Some of the thought of courage. And the best thought that comes to my mind to be a courageous person is that you stand up and defend those that are weaker than you. Instead of being a bully, look in the mirror in the morning and ask yourself, am I a bully? Do I belittle people? Do I talk down to people? Is that what I want the person to my right and left to view me as? Or I'm a person that is courageous and can do the right thing, and I will stand up against a bully, and I will defend those that are too weak to defend themselves. Can you do that? Do you have courage? Sacrifice. Look in the mirror and ask yourself, can I sacrifice? And what does sacrifice mean? Basically, you give up comfort, possessions. In the military, you give up a arm, a leg, because Leroy sacrificed his hand to protect his squad. That's sacrifice. But you can sacrifice also. You don't have to be in the military. You can sacrifice by standing up. You do the right thing at the right time for the right reason, and do not let anyone make a coward out of you. You stand up and defend those that are weaker than you. You'll be respected by your family, your teachers, your peers. Sacrifice. The most important word now in the English language is integrity. A person without integrity is an empty soul. You're just an empty body without integrity. Let's talk integrity. How do you want to be perceived by the person sitting to the right and left of you? Do you want them to look at you and say, if he says it, you can believe it because he's never lied to us? Is that good? Or do you want the person to your right and left to say, I don't pay any attention to what she says. She lies all the time. Who am I? Look in the mirror and ask yourself, who am I? You define your life. Life does not define you. Be the best you can. Be who you are. I want you to take these stickers. You can peel the back off and you can put it on your cell phone, put it on your locker, put it on your mirror. I'm taking this one home because we just got these today. And it's going on my bathroom window. My bathroom mirror. And I'm going to look at it every morning. And I'll ask myself, who am I? What can I do today to improve my character? You're only in this world for a short period of time, but you'll be remembered by your actions. Make your peers proud of you. Make your parents proud of you. Make your teachers proud of you. Develop a character that you can be proud of. You define life. Life does not define you. Thank you very much.
So, who has Leroy's hand? Go ahead and, if you'd hold it up, please. Okay, whoever ends up with Leroy's hand at the end of this, I'm going to ask you to give a hand for these guys up here. Whoever's got the hand, literally come up and present it, and we'll take it literally today. How's that? Okay? So just before we leave, Leroy needs his hand back. But we can talk about giving these guys a hand, and then you can all tell your friends you literally did that. So that's a pretty unique opportunity, I think. You know, we talked about April of 1970, the actions in that month in 1970 for which Gary received the Medal of Honor. The start of that engagement was April 4th. Today is the 49th anniversary of the day that Gary would literally go to hell and back for a cause that he believed in, for freedom, and for all of you. Because of these men's actions, we live in the greatest country on the planet. And as Americans, we're very privileged oftentimes to be able to take for granted the basic freedoms of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. But one thing I want you to know is that those freedoms, those documents, would be nothing but worthless pieces of paper if it were not for a man or a woman to raise their hand and take an oath to defend and support the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Whether in the military, whether in our first responder community, whether amongst our elected officials, they all take that oath. And without someone willing to sacrifice for those freedoms that you all enjoy, we would have none of that. I hope you have a chance to take that away today. Now, we're going to do a very special presentation on stage. I'd like Anne-Marie Osmus, Evie Logan, and Bella Zanilovic to come on stage. And as they make their way on stage, I'd like to explain to all of you a little bit about what they did to make a difference. Like many other students out here, they wrote to Medal of Honor recipients to thank them for their service and how appreciative they are of what they've done for the country. And in the military tradition, there is a symbol that's presented to those who have gone above and beyond. And that symbol is known as the Military Challenge Coin. As a veteran myself, I've got to tell you that to receive a Medal of Honor recipient challenge coin is truly the highest honor. And so on behalf of the Tribute to Valor Foundation, Gary and Leroy will present their challenge coins to these young ladies who took the time to write a letter to simply say thank you. Gentlemen? How about a big round of applause for these great students? So we're about to get wrapped up here, but before we do, please welcome back to the stage Phil Vandal.
If tomorrow all the things were gone I'd worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife, I thank my lucky stars to be living here today, where the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who've died, who gave that right to me. And I'll gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston, from New York to LA. Well, there's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say. Now, if you know the words to this, I want you to sing with me. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who've died, who gave that right to me. And I'll gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. Let me hear you, Central High School, ready? And I'm proud. Together. God bless the USA.
Fantastic. If you guys could just be seated for just a second. Could I take one more minute? Could all of our veterans on stage, in the audience, and our members of the military that are here that are currently serving, please stand for a second? Thank you so much for your service. Captain Palmersheim, Sergeant Perry, Sergeant Major Luttrell, thank you so much for sharing your inspirational stories today with us. Ms. Vandal, Mr. Vandal, thank you for your motivational music and the tribute that your class did and helped bring this assembly here today. So we are so excited and thankful that this all took place today, and we couldn't be happier that you guys were able to make it. So one more round of applause, and then you guys are released to fourth hour. Thank you for being a great audience. Ms. Vandal's class, if you want to stay back for just a second and grab a picture and ask some questions, that would be fine.